This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 474, entitled The Considerable Advantages for Men Who LAT, that's L-A-T, which is living apart together with a woman. Description. This flyer presents the considerable advantages for men by living the LAT, that's living apart together, lifestyle with a woman, from both a personal and a gender political masculist/MGTOW points of view. The flyer itself. The considerable advantages for men who LAT, that's living apart together with a woman, by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. This flyer is a lot more personal compared to most masculist flyers that I write, because it deals with the lifestyle I lead with my LAT girlfriend and its considerable advantages for men who have that lifestyle. I first heard of the term LAT, that's L-A-T, living apart together, in a book written by a Brit who stated that a quarter or so of so-called singles in the UK live the LAT lifestyle, and that it is growing more popular every year. This flyer spells out just what those advantages are for men, based partly on my own personal experiences. I begin by explaining what is the point of LATing. To appreciate the advantages for men of LATing, one needs to contrast the LAT lifestyle with the usual and traditional full-time living together lifestyle with a woman. Of course, LATing is more expensive globally, since two people need a house or apartment each, whereas a live-together full-time relationship requires only one house or apartment. But as living standards rise, more people can afford it and hence benefit from it. Just what is meant by LATing? Two people LAT, typically, if they spend some days/nights of the week together and the other days/nights of the week apart. In my case, I call my own style of LATing 4-3 LATing. That is, 4 days per week together and 3 days apart. Since I live in a 5-room apartment that is crammed with books, and my LATing girlfriend lives in a suburban house with a large, beautiful garden, in practice I spend the 4 days together in her house and invest in her garden, using my male energy and project-driven nature to complete improvements to her garden, for example, making Japanese contemplation gardens, etc. When my brother, sister and I have a fortnightly dinner together in my area, my girlfriend will come too, and combine the visit with a movie and staying the night at my apartment. Both of us like this lifestyle, since it allows us to live in effect two lives. One life together doing communal couple things, and the other life doing what we each individually want to do, unencumbered by the presence of another person. So what are the advantages of this increasingly common and popular LATing lifestyle? The most immediate advantage is, I think, that it is a recipe to combat complacency. If you're in the presence of another person full-time, day in, day out, then it is much easier to let your politeness guard down by becoming more bitchy, more naggy, more bad-tempered. Because when one lives with a person full-time, the small annoying habits of that other person have the habit of becoming increasingly difficult to tolerate, and hence the lack of civility and politeness tends to escalate. Whereas with a weekly separation of some days per week, there is a resting period in which one one lives one's other life. So there is time to miss the presence of the partner. So one is happy to be back together again after a period of several days' separation. There is truth to the quip that, quote, separation makes the heart grow fonder. On the other hand, after 4 days together, the temptation to express one's frustrations and annoyance at the other's negative traits has had 4 days to strengthen. Then one can always tell oneself that soon you will have a break from her and do what you want yourself. Then again, after 3 days of doing what one wants to do apart, then the urge to be back together again grows. Another major advantage for the man is that the sex is good. With a 3-day break, the sexual starvation causes the sexual hunger to be strengthened. So typically, the first night back together is like a couple reuniting after a long business trip by one of them. It keeps the sexual side of the relationship fresh and hungry. With the sex being good, that is regular and passionate, the quality of the relationship is definitely improved. As the saying goes, quote, a man can tolerate a lot in a woman if the sex is good, end quote. I think there's a lot of truth to that statement. It certainly fits my own experience. From a more MGTOW masculist viewpoint, the LAT lifestyle has many advantages. The fact that the woman has her own house or apartment usually implies that she is a FIP, that's financially independent person. So it's not a fluffy, that's a traditional woman who expects to parasite off the money and labour of a man. So the man is not man-slaved by his latting partner. If, however, the latting female partner does succumb to her evolved female tendency to nag, to want to control a man, then the latting man need only remind her that the only thing that holds the relationship together is the quality of the relationship, and that if she starts nagging him, controlling him, withholding sex from him, etc., then he can so easily just walk out on her back to his own dwelling, cost-free to him. These advantages of the latting man are hugely greater than the traditional man-slave husband who has to put up with the nagging, controlling and sex deprivation at the hands of his traditional, full-time, living together, fluffy wife, who evolved to nag and control a man in the distant past to extract more resources from him for herself and her kids. Thus, the latting lifestyle is both a carrot and a stick for a man. He can use it as a stick to his female partner, pointing out to her that she has to stay nice to him, or he walks, that is, she gets dumped. Now, of course, the reverse logic is also true, but since women are much more likely to nag by nature than men, the latting lifestyle is very advantageous to men. It keeps the female partner civil, polite, sexy, nice, nurturative. She knows that she has to remain nice to her male partner or he can so easily leave her. By latting, the man gets the regular sex he needs from his female partner and more and better sex than in the traditional full-time live-together relationship. He does not have to face the risk of 1 chance in 4 of being financially massacred and have his kids ripped away from him if he is a father. Many men who lat are either younger men who choose not to have kids or older men who have kids but who have grown up and left the house, leaving the man free to lat, especially if he is divorced and is now single. The feminists took over the divorce courts in the 70s and made them so toxic for divorcing fathers that it may be some years, even a decade or two, before the gender laws are made men fair, so that young men are prepared to be fathers again. Until this happens, until the masculist movement is strong enough and politically powerful enough to change things, divorce will remain toxic for men. So millions of men will choose to live the MGTOW, that's men going their own way, lifestyle. by refusing to marry and rejecting paternity, since a 1 chance in 4 of being financially crucified and losing his kids is utterly unacceptable for millions of young men. So they become MGTOWs, not having wives and not being fathers, so they are eligible to become LATing partners with women, getting the companionship and regular sex that they want from a woman without paying the traditional price of having the sword of Damocles hanging over his neck if he lives the traditional full-time lifestyle in the same house with a potential divorcing monster wife. LATing overcomes all that. Some MGTOWs are monks, in the sense that they are so pissed off with female psychology that they prefer to have literally nothing to do with women, not even pumping and dumping them. For masculists like myself, who enjoy the companionship and sexuality of a woman, the attractions of the LATing lifestyle are considerable. There is no risk of divorce, since LATing has nothing to do with marriage. Since the female partner is a FIP, that's financially independent person, and there are no kids, there is thus no risk of being forced to make child payments, no alimony to a fluffy parasite, etc. LATing removes all that man's slavery shit. LATing offers men considerable advantages over the traditional full-time one-house lifestyle, which is probably one of the reasons why it is becoming such a popular lifestyle now. I would not be surprised that within a decade it may have become the most popular form of living together for a man and a woman. It may happen that young women may be forced to live the LATing lifestyle if she is to get any companionship and sex from a man. Young men will increasingly continue to reject traditional marriage and paternity due to the hated fluffy feminist takeover of the divorce courts. So these young men then place themselves on the LATing market to find a female partner who is willing to live that lifestyle too, even though she may really want to have a kid if she is young and want to express her frustration and bitterness at not having a kid by the man she LATs with. But she dare not complain to him about her true feelings, because she knows that that is a sure path to hell for her, since he will just get fed up with her and walk away. So as millions of women live this LAT lifestyle, rather than having kids, political pressure on the part of these millions of women, when combined with that of men, will push for the men-fairing of the gender laws, for reform of the divorce laws, to legislate the PARA, its paternity rejection rate, to create gender equality committees in the parliaments that address men's and women's gender political issues equally. This pressure will mount and mount until the gender politicians do make marriage and paternity attractive to men again. Until that happens, expect men to prefer the LATing lifestyle with all its considerable advantages, implying that women will be forced to accept it too, or to rot on the shelf. As more men live the LAT lifestyle, the birth rate will continue to crash until the gender politicians are forced to men-fair the gender laws, or we wipe ourselves out. Thus the LATing lifestyle for men is also a political tool to force the hand of the gender politicians, who today are way too gender politically biased in favour of women, who suffer the delusion from a masculinist perspective that gender oppression is a one-way street. Indirectly, LATing will force the gender politicians to become bi-conscious, that is, have both their feminist and their masculist consciousnesses raised, who then men-fair the gender laws. So millions of individual acts by men in choosing to LAT will force the gender politicians to men-fair the gender laws. That in turn will liberate men from being man-slaves to women, giving men a greatly superior lifestyle compared to the traditional man-slave role of the man to a fluffy parasite wife who enslaves him for decades, a massive gender crime that no longer is necessary, since women now have a career window of half a century so have a powerful moral obligation to fit up. In effect then, in today's world, a woman can either lat with a man or rot on the shelf. So for Masculists, latting is also a political act, as well as being personally very fulfilling and advantageous. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Manslaves to Women, and e-textbook of 470 plus Masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.